Hello? Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell him. Hey, sinners, it's your fucking prophet speaking. God says that we actually came from her vagina, not Adam's rib. God wants us to address her as that bitch now in all prayers and legal documents. Did you know that John has a twink on the side? Olivia doesn't even know. Oh my god, I heard that they're swingers. She practically propositioned me in the church parking lot. Having gained an angel, more like hell gained a bitch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Pouty Mouth. I am your prophet and host, Tara, and today I have an awesome guest, Sadie. I'm so excited to talk with you. We've been Facebook friends actually for a minute. I don't know if you knew that, but then I saw your TikToks pop up, and so I'm super excited to talk with you, Sadie. Go ahead and give us just a brief introduction of who you are, and then we'll get into the topics of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, well, I'm Sadie. I'm an ex-Mormon. I was raised Mormon, homeschooled, Mormon nationalist. That was an interesting upbringing that is a lot to unravel. And then I'm a mother of 6, 2 sets of twins in there, divorced, and here I am trying to figure out life after Mormonism, trying to figure out how to start over in the world we live in today. And it's an interesting thing, an interesting time
Oh my
to
gosh,
start
yeah.
over.
I had no idea that you had 6 kids, Sadie. You look so young. How
Oh,
old are you, if you don't mind me
I'm
asking?
36. I'm
Oh my gosh,
36.
so you are so young. Holy cow. Okay, well, yeah, we're gonna get into all of it. Especially, I want to get into the homeschooling slash unschooling and get into marriage and divorce, and especially what it's like to be half Black. Because I definitely want to get into the background of your parents. So let's dive in. Where did you grow up, and which of your parents is...
I grew up kind of half of my adolescence in Ohio, near Columbus, in a little town called London, and then half of my adolescence in Idaho. It lived in a couple of places here in Idaho. Most of that was in Parma, Idaho. My
Okay.
dad's Black, my mom's white. Yeah.
Was he a
Anyway,
convert to the church,
yes.
or did he grow up in it?
Both of my parents were actually converts in the Midwest. So my mom lived in Indiana, my dad lived in Ohio. They actually met at a singles event for older single adults after joining the church individually. So, yeah.
Okay. And so your mom's white, your dad's Black. And let's kind of dive into it, because I feel like especially like your dad marrying a white woman as a Black man, I'm assuming they got married before in a very probably racist church time. So did they ever talk to you about that experience, or was it all really faith promoting?
It was all really faith promoting. Actually, that wasn't a big topic of conversation for my parents growing up. It just wasn't. My dad is a very conservative Black man, and
Oh,
I grew up in white circles mostly. The town where I spent until I was 14 years old, I
uh-huh.
lived in Ohio, was very mixed, but because of being Mormon, that was our circle. And the branch that I was in, because I was very small, and that was kind of our family ties. I didn't
Okay.
really have a lot of family ties outside of that because my parents didn't get along with their families.
Well, they didn't after converting.
Well, a lot of my dad's family did convert. I knew my cousins. We got together sometimes, but they didn't have strong connections with my families. His family didn't like my mom. My mom's family didn't like my mom. So it was, you know, it was I was just pretty much isolated. I didn't really get to know either side of my family. The church is what I had.
And how many siblings, and where do you fall in the number of
So
siblings?
my mom had 3 kids when my parents got married. She had been previously divorced. So I have 3 older siblings, and then I have a younger brother, about 2 years younger than I am. He has Down syndrome. He's still with my parents.
Okay. Okay, so all together there's 5 of you in your family. Okay. And so what were some of the dynamics, I guess, in Ohio? I'm wondering if you felt better about being a Black person or if you felt empowered with that since you were seeing other Black people, or was it like extremely white still since your only form of like attachment was members of the church?
Well, so I grew up very on the white side of the community, I guess you could say. However, being as isolated as I was, I didn't have a lot of understanding of the dynamics of the racial conflicts as much. I saw it more as a teenager as I started to make friends around the neighborhood. I saw the conflict between the young, especially the young Blacks and the cops.
Mhm.
And so these are things that, and then my older brothers, my older set of siblings, I guess you could say, was the youngest of them was 10 years older than I am. So they were all out
Wow.
of the house by the time I was 8.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, that's backwards. I was 10, she's 8 years older than I am.
Okay.
So by the time I was 10, they were all out of the house. But my siblings had their own kind of experiences, my older siblings, and I kind of gleaned from them. You know what I mean? Other than that, my dad, I guess you could say, talked the talk and walked the walk of the white man. So he's a very charismatic guy. And as I got older and started to see racial dynamics, I saw racial slurs go right over his head. You know what I mean? When people
Yeah.
would make comments at him, he just played it off like it was no sweat on his shoulder, like there was no,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
it wasn't something that was overstated in my home. It wasn't really something I grew up understanding. But being the homeschooled child that I was, I didn't understand a whole lot of social dynamics at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Did your parents teach you, I guess, about like, Black people not being able to go to the temple or men not being able to have the priesthood?
Yeah, it
Was
was all
that like,
yeah, that was part of my education in the church, kind of, and the way they taught it was very much like, well, this was a temporary curse on the Black people, and then it was lifted, and over time it kind of evolved as they learned more, and yes, it's a lot about racism, and yes, it was a lot about the leaders in the church being racist, but, they were just men. We can
yeah,
forgive them for the biases they had at that time, right? So they were very good at glossing over and not seeing what they didn't want to see,
yeah,
and really, like you do in Mormonism, you gloss over the things that when you believe in it that don't make sense, and then you promote the things that are meaningful to you. So they were good at doing that.
So let's get into the homeschooling or unschooling part of your upbringing. So did you ever go to an actual public school, charter school, private school at all growing up?
Never. I visited a high school with my friend. I was able to go with her occasionally for fun. I was in homeschool groups. I was severely undereducated. I remember being probably 6 or 7, around a really young age. I think I was 5 or 6. I was at my cousin's house and everybody was writing their names in the dirt and I didn't even know how to spell my name. That's how neglected I was. I didn't feel unloved as a kid. My parents were affectionate, but my education wasn't really important.
So were your older siblings homeschooled? I know they're so much
No,
older than you. Okay, yeah.
no, they weren't. And that might have had to do a little bit to do with their father's involvement. I don't really know, but they were not homeschooled. It might have had to do with my mom being sad that they weren't living the lives that she wanted them to live and needing me to be more isolated.
Mm. Yeah.
I have there's a lot there with my mom. She's very kind of wants to control her little situation, a cult within a cult. But so no, my older siblings were not, but my parents also were had much more conservative values by the time I came around than they did with while my older siblings were kind of growing up.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And was it your mom that was specifically like teaching you during homeschool? Like, can you describe what a typical day of your homeschooling looked like?
Oh, so there wasn't really a typical in my house. I mean, for schooling, my mom liked to use a set of 18th century books for learning to read. I'm trying to remember what those are called. She kind of picked and chose what she wanted, right? And I was only allowed to read classics and like really old school religious kind of principal teaching schooling books. The McGuffey series, that's what I used to learn to read. And now going back and reading some of the stories that you read in the McGuffey series, it's kind of gross. It's kind of funny. It's kind of very, very old school, very misogynistic, very just ew. I just
Yeah.
don't like it. But that's what I learned to read on. Typically, reading lessons. I have ADHD as well as eye problems that my mom didn't know. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. She didn't know how to deal with those things.
Yeah.
And so teaching me might have been a little bit harder for her.
Yeah.
But, she wasn't a good teacher either. So, it was a lot of yelling because I couldn't remember what she just taught me. There wasn't a lot of repetition, like, she wasn't good at teaching things in a repetitive way, which I learned to do with my kids. I actually homeschooled my kids for a little while, but not the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um
Yeah.
a
I feel like
typical
you
day was what she wanted to do today. She wanted me to do some reading and some math and read the scriptures, basically. But mostly it was if she didn't want to do it, we didn't do it. Or if she wanted me to, she'd hand me a book, even if I didn't know how to read it, and say, "Hey, read this." There was a lot of expectation without a lot of instruction.
Yeah, and what about, like, arithmetic? Did you ever do did she teach you math and, like, how to do, I don't know,
Yeah,
basic
for
math?
a long time, I really liked math and was kind of self-motivated in that area until about algebra, where I dropped off really hard because her manner of teaching it was very conflict, or like it wasn't very fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun, it wasn't very instructive, she wasn't very good at it, so I didn't have anyone to learn from. There was actually a point in time where I found someone who noticed me being behind in math. It was the parent of another kid in a homeschool group that I was in, and she was like, "I can help you with this, I will tutor you." My mom said, "No, absolutely not. I'm her God-given teacher, so I will be her only teacher." So that's kinda what I
Wow.
had to deal with growing up, and so I just didn't want to. I did not enjoy learning because it was always very, very not fun when I
Yeah.
tried.
I can only imagine too that she's the only one that can help do this with. I don't think homeschooling's bad. I don't think it is
Right.
bad. I've met plenty of kids who are homeschooled and kids, especially kids who have ADHD, who are homeschooled and it's been way better for them and they've gone on, to be friggin' scientists and big things, but their parents definitely took it very seriously. And
Right, and that's kinda the world I grew up in too. The majority of the kids I knew who were homeschooled, the people that I went to homeschool groups with, they're doing very well in life. They're entrepreneurs, they're traveling the world, they're public speakers, they're doing very well for themselves, and that's amazing. They learned, and a lot of them excelled very quickly. And I was just kind of the one that was left behind, because for my parents, it wasn't as much about my schooling as it was about protecting me from all of the outside influence, right? It was about protecting me from the dogma, or what's the word for it? Just any outside influences. I think my mom had this idea in her head. She was a doomsdayer, right? She had
Mm,
this idea in her head that any day now, the world was going to end, and all we had was each other, and we couldn't leave each other for anything, right? She
yeah,
also had the idea in her head that my highest purpose was to just have babies. And I believed that too. As I grew
yeah,
up, I was like, well, like, that's what I'm supposed to do. So why try to do anything else, especially if it's so hard, and if I'm not really allowed to? Why fight? Why fight that?
yeah,
So I went that route, knowing, the Lord would bless me for getting married and having a bunch of babies. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That was
yeah,
my purpose.
and I feel like also, like, the doomsday of it all, like, creates a sense of apathy, like, towards anything. Like, you have the doomsday of it that makes it be like, well, there's
Mhm.
not really, like, any point in her getting her education, and then you have the baby maker of it where it's like, well, the most important thing that she can learn is how to be a mother, and that's the best education that we could give her. And so, I'm sure in your parents' mind, they felt like this was better, but it's
Right.
not, like, aligned with reality in the real world of how to survive.
Right. It's very much that. I mean, I do believe my parents, being who they are with their own histories, their own traumas, they probably did the best they could with what they knew, with what they had. Maybe not, but like, it's a spiraling effect, you know? It's just they
Yeah,
did the best they could with what they had, or at least thought they were doing the best with what they could with what they had, trying really hard to keep me from being brainwashed while also simultaneously completely brainwashing me. But, you know, I don't know. What do you
yeah,
do? It sucks, but at least I'm free now. That's kind of where I'm at in life, is like, yeah, I had a really shitty upbringing,
yeah,
but at least I was loved. I wasn't beaten up or anything. Other people have
yeah,
had it worse. I can move forward from here because I know I'm
yeah,
not stupid. I just don't have information. You know what I mean?
yeah. You know, that's a really good way to look at it too, and it reminds me of Tara Westover's book, Uneducated, and I don't know if you've read it, but I felt like for me, especially coming out of Mormonism and reading that book, her parents were doomsday preppers in Idaho, like hardcore living off the grid, and yeah, homeschooling with no education, and then she goes on to get like her PhD. Just really inspiring
Right.
of like life's not over just because she didn't get her high school diploma. Um, and there's amazing things that I think people do after leaving, like you said, a cult within a cult that I feel like oftentimes happens with high demand religions, that the family itself can become an even more extreme version of this cult.
Absolutely.
I think it's, like, amazing to see the people who come out successful, I guess, because I feel like successful isn't just your education and just the money that you make, but it's also the life you're able to live afterwards if you're happy and you're proud of it?
Right, absolutely. And I have read her book, and there was a lot of similarities there, I will say. My parents weren't that kind of extreme, but they
Mhm.
wanted to be. And I'd say they did get to more of that extreme as I moved on into adulthood. Like, that's kind of where they're at now in life.
They're still in
And
Idaho
so
doing that?
they're not in Idaho anymore. I've actually moved around a lot in my adult life. In my married life, we moved around a lot. So we lived in Missouri for a little while. Actually, that was probably where we spent the majority of our marriage. But my parents ended up in Missouri and they're still there. So I'm in Idaho again.
Yeah. And those who don't know, if you're listening, Missouri is like where the Garden of Eden is supposed to be, and like end times Mormons will live there. We'll go there to prep and get like their house and stuff ready. And it's very
Yep.
common in Mormonism to find
100.
families like Sadie's, who I knew multiple families who, their dad would have a job in Utah, and then the feeling of the spirit would mean that they would go and uproot their whole lives and go to Missouri and may not even have a job there to prepare for the second coming. That's how much people believe in it.
Yeah. Well, that was literally us. That was literally us. Actually, my ex-husband had served his mission in Missouri and had connections there. So when we were unsatisfied with our situation here in Idaho at the time, he prayed about it and he was like, "We're going to Missouri." He quit his job and we just went, and he got a new job when we got there. He was unemployed for a little while. We had people that knew him while he was on his mission help us out, and we very much got into that's how extreme I grew up. Right? That's
Yeah.
kind of the world I grew up in. I call it the dreams and visions side of Mormonism that is on the fringe side. So it's inside the mainstream organization, and the people that really get into believing in the dreams and visions, believing they can have their calling and election made sure. You know what I mean? By
Yeah.
living as scrupulously as possible according to the teachings of the prophets, which the prophets through the generations have all kind of had their own teachings. So that makes things fun and interesting trying to mesh those together.
Yeah. And that group of fringe has gotten bigger and bigger. Like I would say probably in 2025, it's the biggest
Yeah.
it's ever been within Mormonism. The Doomsday Preppers and, Lori Vallow style and Chad
Yeah.
Daybell style
Mhm.
Mormonism. It's like they keep having cases and cases of this. Like even Ruby Frankie, I feel like was such a big indication of like where a lot of people within Mormonism mentally are headed, right? Is
Right.
into this even more extreme. But I want to get into how old you were when you got married, and then how many kids, I guess, at this point did you have when you guys moved to Missouri?
So I met my husband, actually, my ex. We met when we were teenagers, and so then he went on a mission, and I kind of waited and kind of dated. But I waited and, had the wedding set up before he got home. Like, I had the wedding date planned. We got married, like, 2 months after he got back from his mission, I think.
Wow.
It was
Yeah.
it was, the day after my 21st birthday, so I was 21 years old, um, when I got married. Going from Idaho to Missouri, I had 3 kids by then. My first set I had 9 months after getting married were twins, and then I had another kid 17 months later. So, at that time, I had him. We lived in Utah. We lived in Utah for a short period of time. We came back to Idaho, moved in with my parents for a little while, and then we went off to Missouri.
So was your ex-husband, was he college educated? Did you go
He
on to
was
college at all?
He was not at the time. He got his degree through the Pathways program while we lived in Missouri. Neither of us were college educated at the time.
Yeah.
He
And
had
not
a little bit of college. He had gone to Boise State for a little bit and dropped out
yeah.
because of life situations. After
Yeah.
I got pregnant with my third kid, we couldn't manage to maintain life.
Yeah, because I feel like it's not talked about enough. Not that you have to be college educated, but it is a determining factor for poverty, right?
Right.
And I think like I was similar to you at 21, getting married and instantly being thrown into poverty and having to live in my parents' basement, similarly, having a baby within the year that I got married.
Right.
Like all of those things, and nobody really, it's interesting just with like the whole shutdown and SNAP benefits and like seeing a lot of evangelicals and Mormons saying like people need to be self-sufficient when it's like, but we all use this at least probably more than the average secular person. We are using the government benefits because of what we were taught by our prophet and leaders to have kids young, have them before we're ready, and
Yep,
to
don't
have as many.
prioritize anything before having a family. That was the thing. And really, I see that as a trap. Like they do that
Yeah.
on purpose. It's a trap to keep a woman dependent on a man and a man dependent on the church. So
Yeah.
the whole family is just dependent. And
Yeah, it's like the opposite of self-sufficient, right?
it
Because
is
now it's like if you don't have this community and this church, like it makes it so hard to leave. And twins, I can't even imagine having twins at that time and then having another baby. You literally have twins and then you have Irish twins with your second child.
yeah.
Like it's like triplets.
It is. It was very much like triplets, especially my third child. Well, my twins were boy girl, and so everybody thought my boy twin and my third child were the twins when I said I had twins. Yeah, it was very much like having triplets, but having 2-year-olds or, 1.5-year-olds and having an infant, there's nothing like that experience.
Yeah. I wouldn't know.
There's nothing.
I waited until, well, I didn't wait, but I had infertility. So my kids are 3.5 years apart. And I think all the time, like, how would I have done this if they were closer in age?
Barely. I barely survived. Barely survived and didn't have a lot of help. We talk about missing community in the church, like when you leave. I missed it while I was there because for some reason, I just didn't get a lot of help.
Yeah.
I just didn't get a lot of help and I was buried. That's kinda where my parents decided to move out there to help. It wasn't a lot of help that they offered.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was more just to live off of our support for a little while, but, there just wasn't, and family was not helpful either because I wasn't connected really to my family besides my parents, who
Yeah.
obviously have toxic traits, and then his parents, I don't they're just doing their own thing and not
Yeah.
very involved, you know? So
Yeah. I think a lot of it
so
is our generation too. Like things are just so different for us in ways of how to navigate the world. Like I think for our parents, you could live off of one income and you could, be
mhm.
able to have the wife stay home full time. Whereas I think between our parents and our generation is such like a big gap, like so astronomical that I don't even think like they can comprehend it because I don't know, it's just like a trickle down effect of like recognizing that our mothers were kind of mentally unwell. And then I think like the dam kind of bursts with our generation of women.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, my family while I was a kid, we lived really well off of $70,000 a year. You can't really do that, especially not in Idaho right now anymore. You
Yeah.
can't
I think
you
even
can't even
one
really buy a
person,
house on that anymore.
yeah, or have kids on that or do anything on
Right.
that. What was your experience like go with your husband, your ex-husband, I guess now, but like what was his involvement like with the kids and housework and all of that? And then I want to get into your spiritual experience side of that of like going through the temple and what that kind of looked like in your relationship.
Yeah, so I did get married in the temple. I got married in the Salt Lake Temple while there was still a play, you know what I mean? While it was still
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And it was it was all very, like, it was all one day. So I didn't go through one day and then get married another day like a lot of people do. It was all one day.
Long day.
So it was a big day. I remember being just terrified, but I was like, I've come this far. I'm not turning back now. I
Yeah.
didn't really know what was going on. I'd been told so many things, like you're gonna have to get naked in there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Which I guess they
And I
stopped that for us, thank God.
Right. And apparently my mom, when she went through, did get naked in there.
Yeah.
So I found that out, but I did not have to, we had the white jumpsuit.
Yeah.
So I got, touched by the ladies and blessed by the ladies in
Yeah.
a white jumpsuit, just like everybody else these days. And yeah, I wanted, I had been an avid scripture reader, so I just associated everything in there with being connected to the scriptures. And I did my own mental gymnastics to say, this is just normal. This
Yeah.
is normal. This is fine. While also feeling like, this is weird. How am I going to remember all these handshakes?
Yeah. Yeah. And all these, like, tokens, signs and tokens
All
or
these,
whatever. Yeah.
right.
How did you feel about I'm assuming you went through when we still were submitting to our husbands as they submit to the
Yes,
Lord.
I did. Yes, I did.
How did you feel about that part of it?
I mean, that just came with the territory. I kind of knew that was our way as women
Yeah.
in the church. A good woman is submissive and as long as her husband is, and it wasn't even as long as your husband is a righteous leader. It was like, be submissive, even if he's not. And then you'll be blessed regardless if, you'll get your reward in heaven regardless. So, after you're dead, you get all the good stuff. So
Yeah.
that's So that was I didn't really think about it because it's what I'd already been taught. It's what I believed. And honestly, my dad made patriarchy look good. He did.
Mm,
So really, I I had a great relationship with my dad growing up. He was
same.
the empathetic parent who I could go to and talk to.
Yeah.
And who I trusted. And I learned early on that I couldn't trust my mom with my own personal feelings and emotions because she'd turn them back, over onto me. I
Yeah.
couldn't talk to my mom about issues that I had with her because she would tell me how it was my fault. But I could talk to my dad. I could connect with my dad.
Yeah.
And
They
my
did a
dad
good
is
job.
kind of, huh?
I said they did a good job, that generation, I feel like, of men. Like, I agree with you. Like, they made, like, benevolent patriarchy, right? Like, my
Yeah.
parents taught that, like, that was of God. And it felt like it was of God because I felt similarly to you. Like, my dad really loved me. My dad was really involved with my life and who I was as a person. And so, yeah, I don't know. It kind of makes, like, a little bit of a mind fuck because you're like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
this
I
is
had a
how it's
good
supposed to
dad.
be. Yeah.
Right. I had a good dad. And, so I expected that that's what it would look like for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially, um, he and my now ex-husband, they connected when we started dating as teenagers. My dad and my boyfriend at the time, they became best friends. They connected on an intellectual level. They were buddies, right?
Mhm.
They were buddies. And I really thought, I expected all the good things that my dad provided to my mom, the love and support and household help and um just my dad would come home from work and my mom would talk about how overwhelmed she was and he would just get to work. He would clean up the
Yeah.
kitchen, he would make dinner, he would take out the trash. He didn't have to be asked. He'd just do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a rude awakening for me to realize that that's not the typical. That's
Yeah.
not My dad's not the typical husband, apparently. And mine was the typical, probably. But it was very much, the home he grew up in was both his parents worked, but his dad was the ruler of the house and came home and sat down and watched TV for the rest of the day after work. He would do outside stuff like mow the lawn or fix things, but his mom did everything else. She made all the meals. She even made her husband lunch for his work to take to work with him or
Yeah.
to come home from work and grab. And like she did all the taking care of the kids. I don't think that man ever changed a diaper. So for first was like, well, I change diapers sometimes. So what are you whining about? Like,
Yeah. So he didn't do any household help when it came to, like sweeping the floors or vacuuming or cleaning the
he
bathrooms.
would sometimes, but it was a lot of effort to get him to be involved in any of that. And it was very much him helping me. This was not his responsibility. He made sure to remind me this is not his responsibility. And I need to give him all kinds of praise because he washed the dishes once this week. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I needed to put him on a pedestal and tell him how amazing he was. And
Yeah.
I said, why do you want, like, you really want to be praised for washing the dishes one time when I wash the dishes all the time? He said, yes, because if I
Yeah.
don't, then I don't have any motivation to do it. And I'm like, well, this isn't your house. Get out. What are you
Yeah.
doing here? That
Did
was
he ever act like it was like he was doing something for you by allowing you to be like a stay-at-home mom? Like,
Yeah, well, kind of, yes, yes. But also because we had so many children, wasn't really an option for me. We couldn't afford childcare.
yeah. Did you have all your kids before you were 30 or no?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
My last set of twins was when I was 28 years old. So,
Okay, so
yeah,
you had two sets of twins and two
two singles, yes, in the
singles.
middle.
That is actually like crazy. Like I
No.
can't even believe you look as young as you do because I feel like each kid aged me at least 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so I had serious health problems and I've had health problems for most of my life and not had insurance for most of my life. So, and also my parents are the kind that just don't go to the doctor for anything.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like that now, but I'm not as much like they are.
Yeah. But it's for
You know what I mean?
different reasons now. Like, cause I
Yeah.
kind of feel similarly to that. Like, I feel like before it's like, oh, we're not going to the doctor because it's like, God's gonna provide, or like you'll
Right,
figure
right.
it out through a blessing. Whereas now it's just like healthcare kind of sucks. Like,
That
and
healthcare sucks, and I
yeah,
learned that too, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
finally going to doctors, trying to figure out what my health issues healthcare sucks, and they don't listen to me or believe me, so I'll figure it out on my own, basically. That's
yeah. So
kind of
you had 6 kids within 7 years, 6 children within 7 years, right?
within yep, within 7 years. My oldest 2 were 6 when my youngest 2 were born.
That is crazy. I don't even know how you like recovering from one pregnancy, I think feels like it should take years, but recovering from multiples and then
Absolutely.
like I can't even believe that. I can't if you already had like pre-existing health conditions, I can't believe where it would leave your health, to put your body through so much of
No,
that.
legitimately, my health tanked so bad that there were times I couldn't walk. I bought a wheelchair
Oh,
at a secondhand store just so I could get myself around the house and help my kids because my muscles weren't working right and I didn't have insurance, and so I couldn't figure it out for a long time. I mean, there's
it
still things I haven't figured
yeah.
out, but I kind of took charge of my health after having my last set of twins. I breastfed them for about a year, and after that, I was like, it's my turn now to take
Yeah.
care of myself. Nobody else is taking care of me, and if I don't take care of myself, I'm just gonna die. So,
Yeah. And your husband, it sounds like, was not at the time was not helpful to that. It sounds like you
not really.
were also like not only were you dealing with health issues, but it's like also extreme levels of burnout with the amount of kids and work and everything that you had going on.
Absolutely, and that's something that he just didn't understand. Like, he just doesn't have a frame of reference for or care to have a frame of reference for.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah, that's
mean?
what I was gonna
It's
say
like
because I feel like if you want to understand, you will understand someone. You know, like, it's just, for me, it feels like
Yes.
basic compassion to see
The
somebody.
empathy isn't there. He just doesn't he even knows this, like, I can't put myself in someone else's shoes. I don't have the ability to do that. Like, I've heard him say that several
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
but also just not caring to, and still seeing it all as my responsibility. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm the one that wanted to have all these kids, although I'm not the one that made them all by myself.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't, you know.
And I find it hard to believe that you're the only one that wanted to have those kids. Like, that is the Mormon way, like, I feel
Right,
like.
and that was the
And
Mormon way that we agreed to before getting married. It was
yes.
what I thought was gonna bring us the most blessings, was just letting the Lord decide when we had babies. Like, that
Yeah.
was what I was taught,
And
right?
it's always have more, right? Whenever
Right.
you go to God to ask if you should have more, it's always yes. Like, that's
That
always the
yeah,
answer.
there's more babies coming, and it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
shit."
What was he like as in regards to the spiritual side of your family? You know, because there's all the family home evenings, the father's
Mhm.
blessings. Like, what about
Right.
that
So
side
that
of?
was sorry. I didn't
No, go
mean
ahead.
to interrupt you. The ADHD side of me is taking over, and I'm
No, you're
interrupting.
fine. Yeah, you're fine.
But that was hard for me because he didn't like, he was, my dad was he was a spiritual man. He was the
Uh-huh.
spiritual leader of the house. He made sure the prayers were said, he made sure the scriptures were read, and he made sure the family home evening happened. Mine didn't do that, really. I mean, he put some effort into it when I really pushed for him to put some effort into it, but it was a
Mhm.
lot of effort from me trying to get a little bit of effort from him. You know what I mean? So he was just lukewarm in everything. He was just kind of, like, how do I put this? People want to say that he's a narcissist because of some of the things he's done recently. I'm like, I don't think he's a narcissist, because I've seen narcissists actually do some really, really horrible things. And he is just too lazy to put in that much energy into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he just doesn't put energy into
Yeah.
anything. It was crazy for me. I think the hardest part for me was seeing him put energy and effort and financial help into friends when I was drowning. Like, his friends, if they needed anything, he'd be there. And I was drowning, and he didn't care. When we moved
Wow.
to Missouri, we started a kind of a hobby farm, which was our
Well,
dream, but he wanted to do step 2 before step 1. He wanted, and so we actually rented a double wide for $400 a month on 10 acres that had a barn and everything on it. But
yeah.
the barn was in disrepair. And there wasn't proper shelter, like, everything was in disrepair. And the deal that we had was like, hey, we'll fix this stuff up if you let us put animals in it. We'll fix it up.
Mhm.
But he didn't fix it up. He just went out and bought a bunch of animals. We didn't have the proper fencing for them. We didn't have anything. And then he went to work, and he left me to care for the kids and the animals all the time. And so I was literally chasing sheep down while they're eating the neighbors, uh,
Yeah.
the neigh
Yeah. You're like the realistic, like, ballerina farm. Like the
Right.
Hannah Nealman of what it looks like when you don't have generational wealth
Yeah.
and become the epitome of, like, Mormon womanhood, right? Is to be a stay-at-home mom, to be a trad wife, but in reality, it's like, this is not
It's
possible unless
it's
it's,
not
like, just for fun and you're rich and have people that you can hire do all of it.
right. We were poor. We were not rich. I
Yeah.
had my 3 babies, and at that time in that house, I became pregnant with my 4th. So, at this time, we're trying to do this hobby farm stuff. He's buying all these animals. I have no say in the matter. He's just doing things without me consenting, and I'm left with the responsibility of them. So that kind of gives you an idea of the dynamic. And that was kind of how things were throughout our marriage. He would just make
Yeah.
decisions. This is what we're doing. Instead of being like the spiritual leader, he just had the control, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
It was just like this, his word is law. So this is what we're doing. This is what I've decided is best for the family, and you just got to deal with it. Right. So that was
Yeah.
kind of, and so I was left with the responsibility while he had, he had a hard job at the time, working long hours,
Uh-huh.
but so did
What was
I.
he doing? Like construction or what,
No,
manual
at that
labor or
point in
no?
time, he worked in a Walmart distribution center at that
Okay,
point
so
in
not
time.
that
This
hard.
was before he got his degree. So he worked at a
Yeah.
Walmart distribution center in the freezers, very cold, long hours.
Yeah. I just think even when you say like long hours is like you sound like you're working like I feel like working with kids, birthing and also running a farm is longer hours and no help
Yeah.
afterwards, like way longer hours, way harder physical toll than working at a distribution center of moving food around in a freezer, like and
Yeah.
getting it on trucks.
Well, I would tend to agree, but he wouldn't. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. But that's
and
wild.
it wasn't safe conditions either. I had to leave my babies in the house, who I had two toddlers
Yeah.
and three toddlers really at
Yeah.
the time. My babies walked young, and it was a curse.
Yeah,
So
I
my
can only
babies
imagine.
all walked between 8 and 9 months old, so they're just all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I had three toddlers at the time, and I had to go out and chase down chickens and goats and,
Dude,
literally, he bought 100 chickens after I told him, no, I can't handle that. And he
yeah,
did it anyway, behind my back.
that's crazy work. Okay, so how did it I mean, it's easy to see why you're divorced, but how did you go towards divorce? Because it feels like you are on like a deep level of believing and living Mormonism, right? Like you are so
Mhm.
in it. And not only if you're not even believing in it, you're so trapped in it. Is how I view it, right? Like you have so much going on, you're so overworked, so like mentally and physically you seem very trapped in it. And so how did it start to go to for you to get out of your marriage, out of Mormonism? Like what events led up to that and
Oh,
for that to
goodness. We're gonna need a second episode or something. This is
happen?
a long story, but I became more scrupulous before before it fell apart for me. So most people start to see the problems and it cracks and it breaks a little bit at a time. For me, seeing any problems in Mormonism meant I wasn't praying hard enough and that I wasn't doing good enough and that I needed to gain more answers from God himself, because if you dive into the scriptures, they tell you that if you're worthy, God will give you the mysteries of the universe, right? If you put in that effort, then He will answer the questions for you. And some people say, "Oh, that's after we die," but reading them, it would suggest that it is possible to get those answers in this life. So that's kind of the road I took, and I got to a point in my health. I actually had a very spiritual experience. At a
Mm.
point in my health, I learned to meditate, which was a little bit fringe,
Oh,
but
very a little bit
huh?
meditating.
Yeah,
A little bit fringe. I'm like
it
meditating.
was right. It
No,
was a
I don't
little
think it's really
fringe.
fringe. I think in Mormonism, that could be looked at as going off, right? Because meditation for us is like you need to just pray more, not actually like
Right.
meditate.
Well, I was also looking into how to improve my health and my
Yeah.
well-being and my mental health, because my mental health had tanked. And so
Yeah.
meditation was one of the things that had been largely talked about in, improving your mental health. So I started to meditate. And during this time, I kind of had this epiphany, like, because I had been praying hard for an
Hmm.
apostle to come to my door and heal me. Like,
Oh, wow.
no joke. You hear these stories about apostles showing up at the right moment to heal, like, in old journals of
Yeah.
Mormons, apostles showing up and healing someone, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Jesus,
And I don't think it's crazy. I can relate. Like every time there would be like a general conference, like I was like, please let them say something specifically for me. Please let this like specifically for me. So like it's not crazy to me to think that you would also be praying like that they come and like use their healing priesthood power to free you from your ailments, you know?
Right. So that's kind of my epiphany at the time was like, nobody's coming to save you. You have to do this yourself. Nobody's coming. Nobody's coming. You're on your own. So then I buckled down. I was like, I have to figure out how to fix my health and I have to live more scrupulously. That's the answer that I got at the time or how I interpreted
Yeah.
it. So Jesus is coming and we have to figure out how we're going to help with that.
Yeah.
So, and at that time we were involved in groups of people. That area in Missouri, like you said, has a lot of people who really believe in those dreams and visions. They're into the books. They're, shoot, what is her name? I can't even remember them anymore.
Like the visions of glory and
Yes, visions of glory. We got involved with people like that. And so we started praying and watching for signs and acting on revelation as we felt like it came to us in whatever form. And then this led us in a series of wild events to move to Africa, actually.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, but so actually there was a point in time where we had to leave our house in Missouri, which we had 2 different houses in Missouri. So this was the second house in Missouri. We had to leave that house. We moved to Texas to be closer to some people I had connected with online that were in this kind of fringe. We wanted to start a community, right? We wanted to build a
Yeah.
community. So we went to Texas just because we could. And at that time, he had already gotten his degree. He was a software engineer. He was working remotely. So we could, and we did, just move to Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
And then another one of my friends lived in Africa, and there was a general conference while we were in Texas, and we were talking to these friends about moving to Africa and their missionary efforts in Africa and their business and efforts in Africa, saying, we should come start a community here in Africa and build the kingdom in Africa. And then this general conference specifically had a lot of Africa talks in it.
Okay. Okay.
And there were
Which the
some
church loves Africa right now because
right. Well,
they
there are
are
reasons for that. And
colonizing. Yeah.
I learned
Yeah,
some of
but go
those
ahead.
reasons. I learned about how the church functions in Africa while I was in Africa, which is a different thing.
Can you go into it just a little bit of like some of the reasons you felt like Africa is such a booming business for the church right now?
It's very easy to gaslight people in Africa.
Yeah.
It's very easy to uh there's a couple of things. So where I was, we went to Rwanda. And
Wow.
where I
Okay.
was, they kind of look at white people as being a higher class, like, because we're coming in with money, right?
Uh-huh.
And so there's a term they say Muzungu. They call you Muzungu, and you'll have kids following you on the street saying, Muzungu, give me money. Anyway,
Oh.
but the church is doing things in Africa, like building schools and
They can use the
doing
church
missionary work.
buildings. Yeah, and they can use the church buildings for like water and different things. Like it's like a community center, which I don't
Right.
think is necessarily bad, but African Americans' experiences within the church and Africans' experiences are not one and the same thing,
Right.
right?
Here's what I think is happening. And what it looks like is happening is that in the developed world, it's becoming harder and harder to get people to join the church because we have too much information. And they don't have information over there. They have the information that they're given. Also, the corruption in the church in Africa is more noticeable. Here, if you have a bishop that maybe essays somebody, it's harder to prove because he's protected by all the boys around him. There, it's normal.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, it's like crazy.
so it's just, and there's bishops kind of like doing what they will do with the tithing money. So it's very corrupt, but goes hand in hand with African government. Rwanda is probably one of the least corrupt governments in that area right now. But you can
Yeah.
go to Uganda and, get affronted by the police and you just give them $20 and they go about their business. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it is with the church leaders too. And it's very, I don't know. I think it's just a lot of gaslighting. Like they don't really, it's more about the community than it is
Yeah.
about the real teachings. And I had an interesting experience while there because while there, I was trying to build this business with my friend, and I had a couple of people that worked for me. We had a home compound because the people with money have to have a wall around their house in order to keep everybody out, right?
Yeah.
So we had a home compound with a help cabin in the back. And there were people that worked with me that were homeless, and I housed them. So
Yeah.
I also had a guard and a cook and a nanny at that
Yeah.
time. So that was all very affordable in
Yeah.
Rwanda, and we paid well, better than everybody else did, it was a very strange dynamic
And how
because,
long? Oh, no, go ahead.
sorry,
Sorry.
well, because we wanted to pay them more than what they asked for because it didn't seem right. It didn't seem like enough. And at some point it came like, that's if you pay me that much, my friends will hate me. So they wouldn't let
Yeah.
us.
And it
But
can make a very dangerous situation, right? To do that. Like I live in Kyrgyzstan right now and I had similar feelings to that, but also it's like I don't know, it can be looked at as negative to do that and make yourself a target for things even though yeah, but anyways.
right, it's a strange dynamic. It's a culture shock. It is. But
Mhm.
I feel like I got a little bit off topic, but basically that's kind of That's kind of the dynamic of the church in Africa. Where I was going with it is I had at this time a guy living in my compound who was a Christian preacher. Basically, he'd gone to school for that, and one that was a Muslim. And so we sat and had philosophical discussions on a regular basis where I was trying to kind of convert them to Mormonism, but also very interested in what they believed because I hadn't had a lot of exposure to other religions. So
Yeah.
I'm out there just gleaning all of this information, feeling like a sponge because I'm learning so much. I'm exploring the world in a way I never thought I would before. And it's really exciting for me. So I'm learning all this information and the similarities between Christianity and what the Muslims believe and the differences and then what the Mormons believe, and we're kind of hashing it out together. And this Christian, it was really funny because he asked a lot of critical questions that he couldn't answer himself with his own faith, even though his faith was very strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
these critical questions are probably some of the things that brought my shelf crumbling down. So that was kind of the area I was in. With a lot of things, also a lot of things were happening in the church with COVID and then with gays and with all kinds of things that I'm just like, what is going on? Because they're saying one thing and then another thing, going back on what they said. And for me, truth is truth, right? It doesn't change. I've always been taught that maybe truth is a little stretchable, but it doesn't change. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so when you say that, you literally see them saying the opposite of something they've said in the past, or disavowing something that a previous prophet has said. That's what broke it for me.
And how long were you in Africa? Did this happen all while in Africa?
Yeah, so I mean, I was only in Africa for 7 months, and we came back. We were there kind of in the thick of COVID.
Oh, okay.
And we came back not because of COVID. We came back actually when we lost our faith because there wasn't really a reason to be there anymore. We went there for faith.
You both did. You and your ex-husband both lost your faith.
We both did, but so I did. And then
Yeah.
after I showed him what I'd found, he was like, sweet, I'm going to go get some beer. He started drinking that day and never stopped. So
Oh, okay.
that
Just
was,
needed the go-ahead.
he just needed, to know that he wasn't going to go to outer darkness, and he was good. Like, he's good
Yeah.
now. But, so yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
That's crazy. And then how did that lead to like divorce after that, or did you guys stay together for like years after that? Like how did that look?
Well, that was kind of honestly, that was a thought on my mind almost as soon as losing my faith. Well, and losing my faith was rough because I didn't have a floor to stand on, right? I kind of
Yeah.
jumped from Mormonism to Christianity just because that was something to grasp onto that I couldn't disprove yet, right?
Yeah.
So I grasped on to Christianity for a while. And I don't know where you are or where anyone else is in their faith right now. I'm kind of like, I'm at a point now where I'm like, if it feels good to you and it makes you a good person, do
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
I don't. But anyway, at
What
that
did
time, that was the only floor I had to stand on, and I was already thinking about divorce. I had already been thinking about divorce. The only reason I didn't divorce the man back when I had the 3 kids in the trailer on the 10 acres is because I had nowhere to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had nowhere to go. I had nothing else. I had 3 babies, and I had an eternal family to raise. So that was really the only reason I'd been in it this long and really putting my efforts in, I put my
Yeah.
full efforts in because that was what God wanted. So we had discussions of divorce in Africa. I brought it up there and I was like, what would this look like if we just stopped?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that time, he was like, whoa, you're serious. And things changed for a little while. And he
Yeah, of
became a
course.
really great person for like 2 weeks. And then, things kind of went back to normal. And we had a couple of shifts like that, a couple of back and forth, where it's like, hey, I've given you the benefit of the doubt for like a few months
Mhm.
now as you've gone back into these ways that you said that you were done with. You said that you were going to prioritize our relationship. So can we go back to trying to do that? And so then it would go back for a little while after some conflict, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of a back and forth of like I learned that this wasn't really, he didn't really care about our relationship. He just cared about me not leaving.
Yeah.
So he would stop me from leaving and do a little bit of effort, and it was kind of less and less effort every time.
Yeah.
And I got to a breaking point, especially so the drinking became a big problem for me. And I went to see my sister who lived in Ohio, who has MS, and I went to help her out for a little bit and to just spend time with her. And he agreed to not drink at all while he had the kids because
Mhm.
he'd get off work and he'd start drinking immediately, and that was kind of his routine. But that meant that he couldn't participate in family life at all. He couldn't take them to doctor's appointments. He couldn't, take them to school, after school events or
Yeah.
anything like that. So I said, no drinking while I'm gone. And they called me, and, he called me, and the kids called me the day I landed and got there and was in bed. I called my family, and he's already drunk. And I'm like, you've been drinking. And he's like, oh, I forgot. I was like, you didn't forget. Like,
But
we
you
talked
also
about.
have young kids. What if there's an
Right.
emergency, you know?
Exactly. That
Yeah.
was so I
He
don't know if I'm
forgot.
giving too much information on here or not. I'm just telling it like it is. But that is, for me, like, my heart was gone at that moment. At that moment, I did not feel an ounce of love anymore for this man. I was done. I was like, this will always be him putting himself first. Always. This will always be him putting himself first. And knowing, I just
Yeah.
I just didn't believe him anymore. I just didn't believe him. So that led into a whole nother level of, at that point I was like, I'd really like to get a divorce. And then there was
Yeah.
a whole nother level of effort, right? And then there
Yeah.
was also the looking at what divorce looks like and saying, oh, we can't afford this. If we split, then we'll both be in poverty instead of if we're just together, we'll be stable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm done. So we can
Yeah.
stay together if you want, but I'm going to go find happiness somewhere else for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense of like, yeah, we can't afford this, but we're separated and I'm gonna go do my own thing.
Right. So there was a lot of trying to fix it. He finally um paid for therapy, which is something he'd refused to do in the past because that's just too expensive.
Yeah.
Now he's like finally willing to do therapy, and then there was still a lot of gaslighting while we were in therapy and his reasons why he could not meet my expectations at all and why they were unreasonable. And I'm like, you don't want to fix this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I
that's what led to my eventual divorce. And it did not, I went into it very naively without a lawyer and lost everything, but I don't regret it.
yeah, oh my gosh.
But, I'm stupid in the way that I don't anticipate the things that people will do to you when they don't like you because I'm not like that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not gonna intentionally put someone out potentially to be homeless ever on purpose. I'm
Yeah, especially the
never.
mother of your children. Like,
Absolutely.
literally, you have 6 kids, like, that's crazy work to do. And I never asked this before, and I was wondering if he was white or what race your husband was.
Yeah, he is white. Well, I'd say he's an Idahoan, but actually he's from Oregon, just over the border.
Okay,
Yeah, Mormon raised, a whole history, big family of
of Mormons.
Mormons and Mormon pioneers and the whole thing.
Interesting, okay. And I would love just to end on your spirituality where it is now. What it is that you've found now.
Mine is very individual, and I don't claim to have any real belief in anything anymore. But what I kind of lean towards or cling to is the idea of panpsychism, the idea that we're all part of some kind of bigger life force that just is and always has been. And it's more for me about information now. The more information we have about the natural world around us, the more we're going to know kind of about how spirituality works. I would say that I have spiritual experiences. I've had some experiences with some plant medicines to help with some mental health issues as well that make me feel like there's a connection, at least, out there to all
Yeah,
living things. But
yeah,
I don't believe in some big white dude in the sky that is all knowing and good and anything like that. I don't believe that there is a God that really has our back and really,
yeah.
rooting
This
for us.
being that's controlling and caring and yeah, that
Right.
totally makes sense. Yeah, and I feel like that too, like, I have a theory, I guess it's not really a theory, I'm not a scientist or anything, that we all believe the same thing, but we just call it different things, right? Like, I
Right.
feel like at the end of the day, some people call it the spirit. I feel like I call it just like human connection. And yeah, like similarly to you, like, yeah, we just are connected. And I don't know how it works. I can't explain it. And
Hmm.
I don't know if it's a being. I don't know what it is. But at the core of all of it is like, we're all in this together, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the transference of energy is kind of where it's at for me. And that can be spiritual in almost any way while you're connecting with another human being or out in nature or whatever. But when we die, the grass is going to absorb our life force and turn it into its own.
Yes.
And when we eat, we absorb the life force of dead things. So I don't know. That's just, I don't necessarily believe in anything after this other than the continuation of life. And life is only about the continuation of life. So that's
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, it's like so crazy to go so simplistic after being so all over the place kind of with Mormonism. Not that Mormons, I don't think that they would think that they think it's simple, but when you get into all of it, I don't think it's that ever that simple. And even I think what we're even talking about of just like not knowing, I don't know if it's necessarily simple, right? It just
Right.
is. And
It just is, right? We only
yeah,
know what there is to know. And until we know more, you know,
we don't know. Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love that. I love just hearing like where people have landed, even if it is like, in other religions and yeah.
Right. And I think that if I don't necessarily believe that the way I believe is the healthiest way to do it because it leaves you in a place of very much like wanting to hold on to something and wanting that community. So I think if you find a community where you fit, great. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
If you find a belief system that works for you, as long as you're not hurting other people, great.
No, I love that. Well, I was so great talking to you. Like I feel like I'm excited for you to just like continue to share your story because I feel like one, it's just so needed for especially women specifically. I feel like our spirituality and our like essence has been stomped down and diminished so much within religion that I feel like excited anytime someone is able to open up and share their story to help other women who may be in similar situations and to be brave enough, I guess, to take the jump and see where it takes them. So I'm excited, but where can people follow you at, Sadie, and support you at?
Well, I mean, I have a TikTok. It's really just kind of a means for me to force myself to kind of get out there and combat my own social anxiety, my own anxiety about being out there. But you can follow me on TikTok. You can friend me on Facebook. And that's about it for now until, more to come. I have goals and plans and dreams, and maybe we can talk more about that later. But there's more down the road for me, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here and thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Pouty Mouth. You can subscribe to YouTube. We're also on Spotify and Apple. And you can also leave a review or join the Discord channel. All of that's going to be linked. And then you can also I'm trying to think. Follow me wherever you listen to podcasts on TikTok and Instagram. So awesome. Thank you so much, Sadie. And this was such a great episode.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
gonna
you.
Hello? Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell him. Hey sinners, it's your fucking prophet speaking. God says that we actually came from her vagina, not Adam's rib. God wants us to address her as that bitch now in all prayers and legal documents. Did you know that John has a twink on the side? Olivia doesn't even know. Oh my god, I heard that they're swingers. She practically propositioned me in the church parking lot. Having gained an angel, more like hell gained a bitch.